Thank you, Hilary. Ladies and gentlemen, just to explain in terms of where we're going to call for questions, before we get to general business, when the formalities of the AGM are completed, that is my report to this meeting, we'll then call for some questions, which will encompass any questions you may have on certainly my report, Steve's report, or indeed Hilary's report as well. In presenting my CEO's report to this 2013 Annual General Meeting of Herefords Australia Limited, instead of ending with thanking people, I'm going to start with thanking people. I'd certainly like to reiterate the words that our Chairman Steve Reid made about the staff. I'm privileged to have a very strong, supportive, hard-working, dedicated staff within the Herefords Australia office and also outside the Herefords Australia office, because the gentleman trying to take photos of me at the moment, Jamie O'Brien, which many of you may not have met yet, is our relatively new, although 5 months almost into the job, Jamie, Marketing and Communications Manager. So, but also, as Steve rightly pointed out, Rachel, who does a fabulous job as our registrar, and many of you would probably know Rachel probably better than anyone else in the office. Tessa, our member services person, and probably most of you would also know Tessa. And as I said, I'm very lucky to have two fabulous staff members, both Tessa and Rachel in the office, and a fabulous staff member in Jamie, who works from Brisbane, but spends a reasonable amount of time with us in Armidale these days, and of course at events like this. I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank the board, because without their support, and particularly the support of my chairman, doing the role of a CEO is incredibly difficult. And I have to say that the role that I have is not made difficult by my board, and it's certainly not made difficult by my chairman. So for their support, their encouragement, their guidance, and at times their good humour, we're trying to lose sight of occasionally you should have a laugh in life. I thank them all sincerely for that as well. I've gone through the staff. I haven't gone through everybody. So the point I want to make in putting this up is that we're an organisation of very limited resources. I do not have too many people on the ground wondering what to do with their day. That is not the case. So between myself, Jamie, Rachel and Tessa, that is the full-time number of staff that we have to do the job. And I think that staff do an absolutely remarkable job with the amount of work that flows through that office. Have no mistake. Sometimes we wonder when that phone will stop ringing, don't we, Rach? And interestingly enough, when you're sitting in the staff room trying to have lunch, that will ring the most. But anyway, that's okay. We also have Amanda Fittler, who does a casual registrar work for us for 1 day a week. And Amanda's worked for the organisation on and off for many, many years. And Amanda is actually expecting again, so we'll have to work out how we're going to fill that little hole that she's going to leave 1 day a week, because she does a wonderful job in backing Rachel up. Scott Single is our accountant at the moment, but Scott doesn't actually work for us. He's a contractor. He works for an organisation called Skybridge Financial. So he's contracted to us for 2 to 3 days per week. That has always been a stopgap as far as I'm concerned. I'll talk about that in a moment. And we can't forget, of course, Jeff Taylor, because without Jeff's assistance, Jeff's work, the Progeny Test Project would not happen. We do not have the resources to make that happen between myself and the rest of the staff in the office. We're very reliant on having Jeff, and as many of you, all of you, not many of you, all of you would know, giving Jeff a project like the Progeny Test Project, you couldn't find a better person to manage that for us. And we're grateful, Jeff, for your continuing support of this breed through your involvement in the Progeny Test Project. So thank you. You are not forgotten as part of the team. Let me say that much to you. In relation to staff, as I said, when I made some changes last year to staff and structures and responsibilities, I needed to do something about finding an accountant's role. Paying our bills, paying our staff, managing the finances of this organisation are very, very important. I needed to do something, so I found and put on a contract accountant, a lady called Michelle Day, who worked for one of the organisations in Armidale, and if I could have hired Michelle, I would have, but she was very happy where she was and was happy to do some contracting for us for a couple of days a week. Michelle then had to go back and look after her own clients through the other business, so we then found another contractor called Scott. And Scott's been doing a great job for us as well, but this is not my long-term plan to have contractors doing this job. So very shortly, I'm going to be advertising for a full-time employee to take over the bookkeeping role for us, which is about 2 to 3 days a week. That's all it is. It's not a full-time role, but it's an important role. But also, if I can find the right person, and it's always the challenge to find the right person who can be a bookkeeper for 2 to 3 days a week for the organisation, and someone who's got the capacity, the skills, the enthusiasm to actually be a backup for Rachel. So to take on the registrar backup role. It won't be their full-time role, but I've got to tell you, when Rachel leaves the office and our members are calling, it's very noticeable we have a hole. And I've got to fill that hole. So it's very important that when people ring up about registration, inventory, membership, Tessa can handle most of that. Very little of that I can handle, to be perfectly honest. But I do need someone, because Rachel likes to get out and show her cattle, and she loves to come to events like this, and that's very important as well. So I need to find someone, hopefully, who can do both those roles for us. And that'll be the challenge. But we're going to start looking for someone within the next month, advertising and looking for someone to do that. The next thing I thought might be useful is just go through 2 slides. This is my last 2 slides, and I'm going to have a couple of other messages for you about some of our achievements over the 2012-13 year. Last year, of course, we elected a new board, and the board decided that they would lift the number of committees operating under that board from 4 under the previous board to 9. Now, many of you might say, okay, well that's fine. Let me tell you that probably in the how many months since you installed? Let's say, what, 11? We've had probably just over 30 meetings, not just board meetings, but committee meetings. By the time I go through a full 12 months with this new board, I believe we will be having something in the vicinity of 40 to 45 meetings per annum. Now, the majority of these are teleconferences, which happen at 8 PM on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday or Thursday. I haven't got to the stage where I'm actually having a teleconference on a Friday evening. I'll draw the line at that one. So there is a lot of activity. What I'm saying is a lot of activity happening at a board level when you've got that number of meetings happening. Also in 2012 we had beef in Rocky, and that was a fairly intensive resource event for us. We had Rachel, we had Michelle and myself and Jeff Phelps up there. We also had the World Hereford Conference, which Steve has alluded to, in Calgary, which was a very important event. And as Steve also mentioned, in terms of building relationships from the perspective of Herefords Australia, but also from my perspective, renewing a relationship with Craig Huffines from the US, meeting my counterparts from South America, from Europe, and from other parts of the world. And that's been very important. This year we've installed a brand new IT infrastructure, new workstations, new server, new backups. We were way behind in terms of keeping our IT infrastructure up to date. We've also recently undergone the upgrade to ILR2, International Livestock Registry 2, and the new infrastructure, IT infrastructure, to support that. But the upgrade to ILR2 has been very important. We're still bedding that in. We've had a little hiccup recently, haven't we? Rachel has something called some HPs, we've got that sorted out, thanks to ABRI. But in terms of the efficiencies and the processing within our organisation, that upgrade to ILR2 has been incredibly important. And the efficiencies gained from that are very, very important. As part of that, we've in the process and pretty well finalised all our migration of all our financial processing now onto MYOB. We used to have to split our financial processing between the old ILR system and MYOB. One of the efficiencies we've gained is that we've now put all our financing basically through MYOB, which is a tremendous improvement to the system and will be of a great assistance to me. We've introduced a dedicated regional redevelopment group update email 6 times a year. Development of the post-board meeting chairman's report, which goes out to all members. We undertook last year the restructuring, what I call the realignment of internal service and functions, saving us $44,000 a year in payroll costs, which was important. A new marketing and communications manager hired. Now let me just say, and I have under forecast this issue. Incredibly so. We have been way behind on our marketing and communications efforts. Way behind. Some people have suggested, why have I made the change that I did? Because we were way behind. We are playing catch up at the moment. That's why that bloke is there, because he's a marketing and communications specialist. And we have got an awful lot of work, and I sometimes have to ring up to him and say, I'm sorry mate, here's something else for you to do. We're sort of talking about the fact we've got no brochures, talking about the fact we've got an old website, talking about the fact that we didn't have a proper setup on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. We've now got a YouTube channel. All the presentations from last month's pre-development conference are now up there and you can watch them. A whole range of things, marketing and communications, we were behind. We're catching up, aren't we, Jamie?
Slowly.
Slowly. Yeah, I'm not putting any pressure on you. I know it takes a while. We've done some increased member benefit programs this year, carving books, gestation wheels, those sorts of things. It's something nice to send out to members. We'll continue to do those sorts of initiatives, and thanks to Tessa and to Rachel for doing that. 2 pre-development conferences, one completed in Armidale and another coming to Albury. You don't put a conference together in 5 minutes. They take a while. We've had sponsors, we've had speakers, venues, quite a lot of work involved in putting those together, but I think the first one in Armidale we can only call, Steve, I think, a success, can't we? So. Youth exchange program. Where are you, Tom? Was it worth it?
Very much so.
There you go. No, I know. We knew it was going to be worth it. We knew we'd chosen the right candidate for an inaugural New Zealand Youth Exchange program. But that's important. Building these bridges, building this knowledge, this capability, the sharing of information, critically important, particularly with our youth. So I'm glad you've made it back safely, mate, and you had a good time. Renewed, in 2014 we're actually hoping to also install a new youth exchange program with the US, and I'm in started conversations with Craig Hufflines on that very point. We've certainly renewed our relationships and our communication with the wider beef industry, including processors. And as Steve alluded to, there's some important meetings happening in Brisbane, 3 next week, which we are looking forward to, but that's the start of a new chapter for Herefords Australia. Genetic condition testing for IE and DL, diluter and epilepsy, were introduced this year thanks to some assistance from the US in helping to validate our tests through the University of Queensland. As we spoke about, we put a 24-panel solar system on the roof. Thanks again to Paul. And that probably, I've had 1.5 power bills since that system went on, and my forecast at this stage is it will pay it for itself in 18 months. And then the rest is money that we are saving. Internal and external maintenance of the office asset. There's been no maintenance done on that place for a long time. Believe it or not, we've got a new Herefords Australia sign in the front part of our building using the new logo. We took down the old one, which had the old logo, and put the new one up, and it looks bloody terrific. Have our new logo up in the front of the building. We're going to paint the outside. We're doing some work on the inside. Just bringing that asset up, keeping that asset valuable, or looking after it. We've done things like introduce paper and cardboard recycling. We never had that. It costs us $22 a month, and we can fill a good sized bin, can't we, Rach? We're all throwing that out at one stage. I think doing those things are very important. And we've installed a new office telephone system. We were getting a few complaints from people. Not that was the only reason we needed to be upgraded. People were saying, where did you get that music from? It was on hold. It's not good. So anyway, we've done that as well. I'm getting dry up here. So they are our achievements, or some of our achievements, I think, thank you, for 2012. And I just wanted to share some of those with you because I think it's important to know some of the things that we have been doing apart from the everyday, which is trying to service our members and make sure our members are being well looked after as well. I might be creating a little bit of a, maybe a bit of a precedent here. I have to be careful with creating precedents perhaps, but before I step down from the lectern, there's a couple of other messages that I'd like to impart to the membership and to everybody here. First is about change. And it was Albert Einstein who said that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And there is a lesson in here for us. I am, at times, I'm being diplomatic, surprised, taken back, sometimes bewildered, sometimes shocked by the criticism that I receive personally from the membership about change. About the way we're doing business and some of the decisions that I have made. For example, the most recent one, and I've copped a little bit of criticism about this, appointing a new marketing and communications manager. I know he's standing here, he knows this as well. If I have to say one more time, or if I have to hear one more time from a member that our marketing and communications efforts are not good enough, we need to do something, that says to me that we need to change. That's what I've done. And I think that is critically important. We want results. If we want results without change, I've got news for you. Forget it. It doesn't happen. The performance star rating system on the breed plan. My advocacy of breed plan. The staff changes. Even most recently, some criticism about the breed development conference. About the regional groups. These are the things that, disappointingly at times, I've been criticised over. Now, I don't mind, but some of them I think are reasonably misdirected. There is no progress. There is no progress without change. It's very simple. And if I can pinch a bit of Albert Einstein, I'd say there is no progress without change, only insanity. So I don't mind being criticised. Don't get me wrong. I love to be questioned. I love to be challenged. I think that's fantastic. But when it's a little bit misdirected, which some of it is, I have a bit of a problem. When we're talking about change, not just for change's sake, talking about change for improvement, then I think we have to think a little bit more carefully about questioning that change, perhaps. My view, a little bit of a personal, perhaps, remark there. Perhaps related to that is also actually a Hereford commercial breeder. Friends of mine, I think I may have said this last year, friends of mine who are commercial Hereford breeders around Millicent, South Australia, used to be dairy farmers. They're not here. One thing that this dairy farmer said to me many years ago when I was working in the dairy industry was, if you are not part of the solution, you are part of the problem. It's one of the harshest things I think I've ever heard. But when you sit back and reflect on it, it's pretty hard to argue with it. If you are not part of the solution, you are part of the problem. And I wonder sometimes that there is a few people within our membership who are too much part of the problem and not part of the solution. That's a very harsh, critical thing to say. But in terms of criticism, I get quite a bit from time to time. I don't pass it all on. And as I said, I don't mind it, but sometimes I think it's a little misdirected. Because I take, for example, unless the demise of the Hereford breed started 16 months ago when I joined, in which case I should have been sacked 15 months ago, this has been going on for a while. So there's been a lot of people who have been sitting and watching the erosion of this breed for a considerable amount of time. And my question is, what have you done about it? Because there are plenty of people who are saying to me, what are you doing about it? And that is the most fairest, reasonable question you can ask the CEO. What are you doing about it? And I'll give you a straight answer what we're doing about it. Progeny test projects, breed development conferences, meetings in Brisbane next week with processors and others, working with the Americans to try and get a Pan-American, maybe Trans-Tasman, at some stage up. Looking at how we can improve getting their genetics into the US so we don't get disadvantaged with the EPDs. Looking again, starting to actually, and I'll be putting this information out very shortly when the technical committee clear it, to start looking for samples of eye cancer so we can send them to Jonathan Beaver in the US so he can continue his research into eye cancer. working with Tony Batteran from Corridor Veterinary Group about BRD. We are doing a lot. But we seem to have been doing a lot over a very short period of time. So my question is, how many people are actually part of the solution and how many are part of the problem? And to finish off with, I'm being very critical, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. Maybe I won't have a job after tonight. Is a propensity by some people to think that it's okay to trash the brand. We're all Hereford people in this room. But there are a number of people in our membership who maybe don't agree all the time with what the board says, or what I says, or whatever, have a different point of view, fabulous have a different point of view, and don't trash the brand. And there has been far too much of that happen over the last 12 months. And that is, there are things that we can do, and things that we should do, and things that we should focus on. There are things that we shouldn't do, and we should never do. But aside from those things, can I say, as your CEO, I've had a terrific 16 months, and let's hope it continues after tonight. I've had a terrific 16 months. I have been challenged. I have learnt more in 16 months than I have learnt in any other job I have been in my entire life. Stretched, pushed, not by the board, but just for me to understand this business and try and get a handle on this business. And I have enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoy what I do. And I hope that shows to the membership, I hope it shows to the staff. And I thank our membership very much for their support of myself and the staff and what we try to do. We don't always get it right. Never going to tell you that I'm going to get it always right. That is just ridiculous. But I do believe that we are trying, we've made some inroads, we've made some steps forward. That's probably enough for me. Thank you very much.